Hey Mayo, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Not bad. Let's get into some stories this week. So first things first is iOS 14 beta 5. So we're getting along in the iOS 14 beta cycle. We're getting closer to like the late September, maybe October release date for iOS 14. What are some of the refinements that we see this week and some of the changes? Besides like things that where beta 4 was just really bad at taking pictures and like having the camera
I
stay
mean,
open.
it does feel like Beta 5 has brought us kind of back round on the stability front. I will say that at the start.
I've
Like,
gotten really used to the camera app Halide
hmm
and almost to like preferring it because I've had to use it so much to take a picture reliably with the camera app. What would happen on my 11 Pro Max? No, Pro, not Max. Is that the camera would just like go in like this blur mode, and then you couldn't take a picture or a video or anything.
yeah.
And that was true from the shortcut on the home screen or the app icon or wherever. So I've been like using Halide full time, and now I'm like kind of used to the way it focuses and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely had that bug before. I haven't had it on this beta so far, which is nice. Like they changed. I think that bug kind of arose because we spoke about it, didn't we? Where they changed
Yeah,
the photo taking algorithm.
that's
So
right.
the first photo is like full quality, and then if you take more in succession, they then start tweaking the parameters around so you can take more photos more quickly. So obviously that had some unintended consequences where the whole app would just like freeze up when you go to use the shutter. But it definitely seems like they're heading in the right direction. If the iPhone is coming out in October, as they've admitted it is, I am expecting iOS 14 to also like come out the same week because that's what
Sure.
normally happens, right? They have the iPhone week in like the third week of September, where the operating system comes out on Tuesday or Wednesday, and then the phone comes out on the Friday. I mean, who knows? They could do iOS 14 in September again, but I feel like they like the splash of doing like the operating system followed by the phone in quite short succession. So we'll probably see, you know, middle of October is the iPhone, and the Friday comes around is the operating system release, and then the Friday comes around and the phone comes out.
Yeah,
One thing that
but
was kind of yeah.
but I was gonna say by the way that October delay. So the source of that comes from Apple's CFO Luca Maestre. He says no new iPhone until October. Usually they're September, and that was on the quarterly investors call. But I would what they didn't say is that it's because of how soon they can make them and get them in stores and shipping. I don't think it's because like the state of iOS 14 or anything. Like
Right, yeah.
last year would have been the year where they would have delayed the phone because of that, and they didn't. And so it's because of the global state of affairs and how that affects the supply chain for getting the new iPhones out this year.
Yeah, and obviously there may have been some iOS 14 delays as well, just in terms of software development, because they had WWDC later in too, and people were working from home. So, some of that disruption can get evened out if it does get pushed to October. But based on the current betas, I'd say we're just right on track for, late September or October release as normal. One thing that was interesting is that the HomePod beta, which is still kind of private, that's actually labeled as iOS 14.1, not iOS 14.0.
Which seems to suggest that the features that were announced for HomePod at WWDC won't come out at the same time as iOS 14. That it'll be maybe a week or two or more later.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So whenever iOS 14.0 comes out, the HomePod update might be coming, a month late, up to a month later, basically. Good. And we've actually seen that before, right? Like last year, they did iOS 13 came out, and then 13.1 came for support for the iPad, and then the HomePod update came around there too. So
In like
if
quick
they're already,
succession too.
yeah, exactly. So if they're already labeling the HomePod beta as 14.1, they're obviously preparing that timeline for it to be later still. So we'll have to keep eyes on that. In terms of what's new in iOS 14 beta 5, there was a few pretty significant changes given how far we are late into the cycle. One of the things is the date picker control has been updated. So for the longest time, pre iOS 14, the date picker on iOS was basically you tap on the field and then up come with these wheels, these big wheels at the bottom of the screen that you could scroll with your fingers. So for instance, if you're in the clock app and you want to set an alarm, you could click on the control and up would come the big wheels, and you'd slide hours. If you're on 8, you go up to 7 or you go down to 6, and then same with the minutes. And then they changed that with 14. Okay, they didn't change it. They added a new default. So the old style of control still exists in UIKit. So wheels are available. If a developer explicitly says they want this control for date or time selection to be a wheel, but the new default is this new compact style, which is more closer to a text field because it just says the number in the little box, and then you tap on it and you get a keypad, a number keypad, and you can just type in the hours and the minutes. I was kind of like I get why they did it, and it certainly is more appropriate for context like Mac Catalyst or
Right.
the iPad. But on the phone, there is something quite elegant. Like if you have an alarm for 7 o'clock and you just want to change it to 7:15, I think it's easier just to drag the wheel up and down than it is to tap in the text field and then retype out what you want. And what we've seen in Beta 5 is they've kind of brought back a sort of middle ground where now you still get the primary input is still tapping in with the keypad, but you can also now drag the field directly. So in the hours and the minutes, you can drag the hour side, and it will inside of like the cell basically where the control is. You can change 76543, and similarly with the minutes, you can do it independently too. So you do kind of get the best of both worlds now, where you can type in with the keypad if you want to completely change what the current value is, but if you just want to do a minor adjustment, you can just swipe down on either side of the control, which is quite a nice balance, I think.
It's not quite as discoverable with in terms of like using touch just like
Right, yeah.
but it's certainly a compromise in that having wheels on the Mac and those original Catalyst apps like Home, for example, when you did a date picker for scheduling and automation, that was just not fit for that. And now we're going to have all iOS apps on the Mac, unless the developer says don't do that.
Indeed, yeah. And like the clock example is one where I feel like the wheels were a better choice than just basically what is the equivalent of a text field, because I think a lot of people, they edit their alarm and they're only changing it by a few minutes at a time, right? It's not like a calendar event where you add a new calendar event and every single time you add a calendar event, it's going to be a completely different time somewhere into the future.
There should be an alarm option, like when you make one, just say like one or many, because so many people do that where they have it staggered every few minutes, so that no matter how many times they snooze, they're not going to sleep through their alarm. Like I don't want to miss a flight alarm. That type of an option.
Yeah, that is. Someone should do like a social study on just like the number of alarms people have in their clock app. I mean, sure. and the clock app's definitely going to cause some people to get confused this fall, because they're emphasizing the sleep alarm so much that becomes the new kind of like default alarm system, and then you have quote unquote other alarms below. So I'm sure that will freak some people out. It's kind of funny they changed the UI on it, because before it was just called like Apple Sleep, and you'd have a clock and you'd have to set the alarm right. Now they've changed it to sleep, and they've got a light that says wake up to kind of make it clear that this is still your alarm when you're waking up. It's not when you're going to bed. So they're adding quite a lot of complexity into that app, but I think people should probably get the hang of it. But you're completely right. Everyone just ends in a situation where you just have 10 alarms that are like 10 minutes apart from each other, depending on exactly when you need to wake up on what given day.
Yeah, one of our very popular stories over the summer has been how to set up the alarm on your phone. Because it keeps changing.
Because it keeps changing, indeed, yeah. So I think this new scroll behavior for the date picker is a nice addition. It definitely helps to set a compromise between compactness and still functionality. And yeah, it is clearly more targeted as like a power user gesture now, because the old Wheels UI, it was that's the only way you can interact with it. It's obvious you have to scroll the wheels. Whereas this one, it's kind of hidden because you don't see any occluded parts of the other parts of the reels. You only see it when you start doing the gesture. So it's more of an advanced user thing, but I think it's nice for them to do it. Although I still think there's an argument for the clock app that the default should still be the big wheels, but this is a decent middle ground. Also new in Beta 5 is, rather amusingly, the news widget is now huge. Well, they have a huge option. So iOS 14 widgets, you put them on the home screen. They come in 3 sizes. You have the compact one, which is 2x2. You have the bigger one, the medium one, which is 2x4. So it takes up a whole row. And then you have the biggest one, which was 4x4. Well, in Beta 5, just for the news widget, they now have an additional size, which I guess is like super massive, which is like 4x6. Like if you could put it on the home screen, it would basically fill the entire screen. You can't put it on the home screen, which is an interesting quirk. So just for the news widget, they've got this kind of special case design, which gives a much bigger canvas. So it allows the news widget to have top stories, best of news plus, for you, breaking news, like in a much bigger size. But it behaves differently to all the other widgets because A, it's really big and a regular size, and secondly, it can only stay in the today view. It can't go amongst the app icons like all other new iOS 14 widgets.
Right. And so in that regard, they're kind of pulling back into a function that it had before iOS 14, because the news widget, I mean, all the widgets could be pretty long. And that way now it's more like what it used to be. It's just a special case, and then for 14.
I think the news team might have asked like whoever's working on Springboard to be like, we used to have this widget that could have all this information in it, and now, we have to fit into this smaller box. So please, can you do something for us?
Yeah.
and they've basically made this new size that can support everything.
And you could see in the future that if the third party app might want to do the same thing. Like say we're an information dense widget. We can't put much in here. Have that option too.
Yeah, like I definitely think this is the kind of thing where, although it probably ship as exclusive to Apple, right?
Right.
In 14.1 or 14.2, they can just add another size to the widget framework and be like, now developers, you can make a really big one if you want to. And they're waiting for like, oh, we'll open it up when we've worked out a clever way to let just the widget be on amongst the app icons again, because it could basically just take over a whole page of the home screen, right? And I can see why they don't do it at the moment, because one kind of side effect of the new widget stuff is that my home screen is more messy than it's ever been before, just because I keep putting widgets in and out to try them across the beta season, and as you drag like the widgets around the home screen, it moves your app icons around, and it's unstable. Like if you move your widget here, move it to the next page and move it back again, your app icons will be in a different order. So you can imagine that effect being even more pronounced when you've got a widget that literally takes up an entire home screen full. So maybe they're like thinking about cleverer ways where they can sort out the organization or the algorithm that lays out the grid of icons amongst the widgets, and then they can expose them, the new Super Tool widget when they've sorted that out, so that it can be amongst the app icons again.
You can only put the Super Tall widget on the new iPhone, on the new Max.
the new iPhone 12 Max exclusive feature.
Right. Yeah.
So for now, the news widget is the only one that can be super big, and it's limited to the Today view. But I think it's a pretty cool widget, actually. It's quite, pretty and informative, and obviously you can click on each of the links to jump to the stories.
And there are some apps that are just like, if you can glance at them and then you launch into something else from them, then they're better as a widget than as an app. Weather has always been a classic one, where to have a really, glanceable weather widget might be more useful than ever having like the weather icon on your home screen. So I think that could be a candidate too for the future of like having like a mega size of it.
Yeah, I expect like when these widgets finally ship and everything kind of stabilizes, there'll be a whole load of users that never touch widgets anyway, and they'll just carry on staying to home screen 0 and then never think to move them out. But then the people that do rearrange them and start putting them amongst the app icons, after people get bored of the novelty of moving around, I think a lot of people just settle into having like the weather widget as an app icon instead of the app icon, and then maybe the news widget potentially or something like that. Like I don't think people are going to have millions of widgets in every single screen. Just being able to have a dynamic weather icon in the form of the small compact widget provides enough functionality to make people happy.
The smallest widget size is 4x4, right?
It was 2x2, I'd guess.
2x2
because it's two icons.
2x2, yeah. So it's 4 icons.
Yeah.
4 icons. So it's kind of a shame that I guess the way to put this is that there's still an opportunity to have a 1x1 widget size.
Right.
It's your current activity rings as can be read on a very small widget, or your current weather temperature, like just that, so that you can. It's still like having the icons, but it doesn't take up the size of 4 icons. And
yeah, I've seen a lot of people actually say they want a 2x1, so 2 wide and 1 tall. Mm-hmm. So it's because the current like wide one is 4x2, right, which is kind of big. So people want like a really compact one, because if you have the wider ones, like the 2x2 icon is still. It doesn't provide enough width to actually provide you much text, right? So it's bigger, but you're not. It's nice for an image, but if you just want like a textual description, it's not very good. Whereas if you had a 1x2, it would be smaller on the screen. It'd make a more efficient use of space, because you could have like proper wide text that spans a couple of lines. So there's definitely other sizes that they can experiment with, as we've already seen them. Add this super new massive one for the news app.
Yep,
and then finally in beta 5, the biggest feature the other big feature is they finally. This is hilarious. After, 10 years of people being like, look, we just want to find a way to hide our photos.
I think it's iOS 7. Like halfway through. I think this is when they did a hidden album, I think. I'm not positive.
Yeah. Like, before iOS 7, people were like, look, we love the Photos app, but can you just let us like hide some of these photos? We don't want other people to see them or whatever. We just keep them to ourselves. Maybe we took a picture of a birthday present that we don't want our spouse to see, and like we just want to hide it out of the way or something. And like, there's a whole ecosystem of App Store apps which are just like alternative repositories for photos that you can lock with a passcode. Like you can just put a password behind it and just put some photos there, and no one can get into it unless they click on it. And then you have the even more adventurous ones that pretend to be like a calculator app, but then you have to type in a special code into the calculator and it reveals the secret repository of photos. Like it's a crazy whole side channel of the App Store. But Apple has finally done something that may satisfy most people. So before, up to iOS 7, or iOS 7 and later, you could hide individual photos, but the hiding would just take them out of the the main photos tab, the main camera roll tab, and it would put them into a separate album called hidden photos. But the nature there is the hidden album's not hidden because you can just go to the album screen, click on hidden, and see all the.
It's more discoverable than ever.
It's like favorites. You wouldn't say a favorite photo is hidden because there's a nice single place where you can see them all together. So in iOS 14 Beta 5, there's now a hilarious toggle in photo settings, which is called hidden album, and you can toggle it on or off. If you toggle it off, the hidden album is no longer listed in the albums tab, so you can't actually find the hidden photos. They're truly hidden unless you know to go into settings and turn the hidden album back on.
Or if you find the picture in the stream of pictures, right? So it's in the big summary.
Hiding does take it out of the summary.
It does take it out of the summary. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you got to know that's so close to what people probably want, which is to put a passcode, Face ID, Touch ID over an album, even if it's because you can lock a note and it's the title is visible, so just have it be hidden and not be able to see pictures, and then passcode it.
Yeah, they need like a the setting where it's for hidden album needs an option which is like hide or hide with passcode, right? And then you type in your code
out,
and you can unlock it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they even need like a second tier passcode. They could just have it so that when you click on the hidden album, it then asks you to authenticate again. So like you could give your phone to a friend to just scroll your pictures, but if you go to hidden, they can't actually see it until you like Face ID, Touch ID into your code, right? Like,
right.
It's such a simple thing that, and honestly, Samsung phones come with this pre-installed. In most countries, they'll come with like Secret Folder X as an app, which just addresses this problem because people want a secret place to put some stuff hidden behind a second layer passcode. Mm-hmm. So it's crazy to me that Apple hasn't like properly addressed this, and this is like the half step, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what the reasoning is. But someone from the notes team needs to like walk over there and give them.
They could just write them a note.
They could. All right, let's take a sponsor break for a moment.
Sure. Smart investing means having a diversified portfolio, a combination of stocks, bonds, mutual funds. But if you've ever looked at the details of the most successful portfolios, you usually find a diversified set of real estate in there too. Real estate is not easily available to individual investors until now. Fundrise enables anyone to access these asset classes. Fundrise makes it easy to build a portfolio of institutional quality real estate investments. Whether you're just starting out in the investing field or you're looking to grow, Fundrise has got you covered. It's an investing platform that makes investing in high-quality real estate as simple as investing in the stock market. You can build a stable cash flow with a dividend-based portfolio or look for long-term growth with appreciation. Fundrise supports all different pathways. Fundrise manages more than $1 billion in assets for 130,000 investors. Since 2014, the Fundrise platform has averaged 8.7 to 12.4% annual returns. Investors have made in excess of $79 million just in dividends. Fundrise connects you with a team of real estate professionals that vet and manage all of the real estate investments. You can track your portfolio's performance through the easy-to-use Fundrise website. Start building your better portfolio today. Get started at fundrise.com/happyhour to have your first 90 days of advisory fees waived. That's fundrise.com/happyhour to get your first 90 days of advisory fees waived. Fundrise.com/happyhour.
Yeah, thanks, Fundrise. They're a brand new sponsor for us, so we really appreciate that. All right, let's talk about this CBS Bundle that was rumored last week. This week, it's confirmed, and I have it, so that's cool.
Yeah, like this is just like a follow-up item, basically. Yeah. Like last week, we were talking about the first, kind of bundle effort from Apple's video division, and on Monday, it did indeed come out. And so, if you previously subscribed to CBS All Access and TV Plus, now you basically get Showtime for free because it used to cost you like $26 to subscribe to all three individually, and now it costs you $14.99 because it's $9.99 for Showtime CBS, and then it's $4.99 a month for TV Plus, obviously. If you have the free year of TV Plus, then you're only paying $9.99 a month for the time being. So, like you, Zach, you previously subscribed to CBS All Access through the TV app, and you obviously have TV Plus. Mm-hmm. So now you basically just get Showtime for free at all. So I'm sure you've completely taken advantage of the deal in every possible way and watched everything on there already.
I mean, they don't like make you do it. They scoot Showtime over as like the frontmost channel so that that's like the most suggestive it is, and then you go to Showtime and you go to add it, and it's like it looks like you can spend $10 a month or whatever it costs you mentioned, but or if you've got, like you said, Apple TV Plus and CBS All Access, and it's free, and it's like so you just say yeah, I want to do the free thing, which is
So you have to like opt into it.
yeah, you get opt into it. I kind of poked around on Showtime, and I've certainly subscribed before for like one show that I watched all the way through, maybe a couple of shows. But just before we started recording, there was Showtime had tweeted that they've got I guess it's a space comedy because it's got John C. Riley in it, and it's called Moonbase 8, and yeah, so a workplace comedy series. And so it's like yet another one of like the space comedies that are popular these days, like keep coming out, and that'll be on Showtime. So before I would not have paid much attention to that show, and now I'll be able to watch it for no additional cost. So
I mean, take it if you can get it, right?
yeah, yeah. By the way, can I just say, with speaking of the space stuff, one of my photographers for Space Explored has an Android phone, and we do a group message, and tap back on iMessage where you react to messages. I mean, it's not new. Everyone knows about this, but the thing where you tap back and on Android, it just like Apple tries to just send it as a text message, and if you like remove one and you can react, it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
I haven't spoken with I haven't had a message thread with somebody with Android in a long time, and it's just trolling at this point. But I think yesterday we tried to see like how far deep you could go with
How much you can nest it, yeah.
yeah, how far you can nest it, and it got really, really deep. Yeah, I may try to find it at the end of the episode and read it.
I think they should just have an option where you can just disable tapbacks for green message bubbles. Like, no, who actually wants to get a message just like Zach laughed at, and then a quote of the message that you already sent them? Like, nobody wants it. Like, they should just not show it.
I replied. I did a tap back to one from the wives, and it made a private thread to that person instead. So it was like totally confusing.
Yeah, it's like there's not a good option. There's not a better way for them to do it on an SMS thread. But so I just think it's the kind of thing they shouldn't let you do at all. But
yeah. Anyway.
There you are.
Yeah. Anyway, Showtime.
Yeah,
so,
Showtime. Yeah, and so just a quick FYI on the because as more people are now obviously getting this deal, it requires you to sign up through Apple TV channels. But CBS, it's the full CBS All Access, but they don't. The Apple TV channel doesn't support the live programming of CBS. So if you just naively go to the TV app and sign up for the bundle, it seems like you're not getting everything because for whatever reason, the CBS like sport programming doesn't get included in the channel content, even though there's a sports tab in the TV app in the US. It doesn't actually work with the CBS channel, which is stupid, so they should fix that. But there is a workaround because CBS is one of the very few Apple TV channel providers that let you link your Apple TV channel account to like the CBS app directly. So you basically sign up for a CBS.com account and you can join your Apple TV channel subscription to that. And so basically, if you want to watch live sports, use the CBS app, and it's the ad-free CBS plan, and it's the proper plan. And then if you just want to watch through the TV app, you can carry on doing that for everything else. And we have instructions on 9 for Mac if you want to find that out. But it's just another stupid like gotcha of the whole TV experience where it's like, look, you're getting CBS All Access and it is the full ad-free plan, but this bit of content isn't actually available through the TV channel for no good reason, and there's no clear obvious way to even do it. But if you know this special link, you can go here and join them up together and actually make it work. So it's just another one of those stupid things of the modern television era.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny because you don't have CBS. You're in the UK,
right?
What is CBS to you? But you're the one who taught me about being able to log in through their app, just because they're the only one that can.
Yeah, they're basically. I think one other person does it now, but yeah, like they were just the only one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everyone wanted HBO to do it, and then HBO was like, "No, we're just removing our Apple TV channel entirely." So have fun with that.
Yeah.
And just while we're talking about Apple TV stuff, Apple TV Plus ordered their first competition series called My Kind of Country, which is basically like a country music talent show, which is interesting because I was obviously, Apple kind of started its original content with Planet of the Apps kind of, garbage, right? And now they're getting back
and Carpool Karaoke, where
and Carpool Karaoke, which was much better. Let's be realistic. Carpool Karaoke was a decent show, and they're still renewing it. They're recording more episodes again for like another season. Planet of the Apps was pretty terrible in the scheme. It was fine for something that was free, but it, in terms of like high quality programming, it definitely wasn't there.
Well, yeah, it proved that you can't just have like talent that you have to pay a lot of money to, and then Apple, and it's also got to be good. Yeah,
so now they're retrying again. Obviously now this initiative is with completely different people running the show, and I'm sure their country music talent show will be much higher production value, much less cheesy.
So Reese Witherspoon's company is behind it, right? And so
right, yeah. Hello Sunshine, the production company, which is also produces the morning show and Truth Be Told on Apple TV Plus as well. So Reese Witherspoon's definitely getting a lot of the Apple money at the moment.
Yeah, and this is neat because I mean, you can see that you can imagine that there'll be more of these sort of. I mean, I guess they're talent shows, reality. They're not really like reality TV shows, but
yeah, I guess they're probably going to shy away from just like the stupid, dumb reality like trash TV, but they are talent shows.
Wait till they figure out like a game of some kind to have. They'll do it.
Like a game show, yeah.
Yeah, but this is kind of the first of its kind for Apple TV Plus, and
yeah, and I was surprised that they even went in this direction, right? Because obviously their brand is they're trying to go for the prestige, high production value, high budget content, and that generally leads you in the direction of comedies and dramas, right? So the fact they're even willing to, move into a talent show type arena is interesting, and it kind of just shows that Apple is taking this seriously. Like TV Plus is a big initiative for them, and they're expanding it, in many ways.
Yeah. And there's so much synergy here between My Kind of Country, the Apple TV Plus TV show report coming out, and then I guess that was it Monday this week, the beginning of this week, where Apple had this press release. Maybe it was Tuesday, but Apple had this press release where they said that Beats One was being rebranded as Apple Music One because that sounds better. And they had 2 new radio stations for the first time since Beats One was their first radio station. And it's Apple Music Hits and Apple Music Country. And so they've got the My Kind of Country show coming, and then they've got now a country station. So the radio stations, those are free, right? So you don't have to pay for Apple Music to have access to those.
Yeah, you can listen live for free. If you want to listen to the recorded on demand versions, then they're only available when you subscribe.
Okay, so live, you shouldn't tune in for free. And so before you could only do that to one thing, which was Beats One. Now it's Apple Music One. This is not. I mean, Beats One was good because it was BBC One. Like that's who they hired from and modeled it after, and named it One for because of BBC One. And so it was Beats One, and it even had this very similar graphics and everything. Apple Music One, we'll get used to it. We'll get used to everything, but it's not better. It's the service.
It's just a classic example of Apple overloading the same name for no good reason, right?
Yeah, and my first reaction was to tweet that, last week we just discussed on this podcast the fact that Mark Gurman reported for Bloomberg that Apple One is the good name of the bundle that's coming, even if it has 4 or 5 tiers. Apple One is a pretty good name for a bundle service. So now there will be Apple One, which only the highest tier includes Apple Music, which has Apple Music One inside, but it's
they had to go and
one,
screw
not
that
written
up.
out one, yeah.
Apple Music One, it's not Apple Music Radio One, which would at least be, more descriptive. It's just Apple Music One, It's missing a word, or the reason Beats One worked is because Apple Music's the overall service, and Beats has got rebranded into the station, right? And yes, and Beats is technically overloaded in terms because Beats is the Beats headphone brand, but for some reason Beats One works, but Apple Music One doesn't. Yeah. If they'd have called it Apple Radio One, I guess that'd have been.
I mean, we used to have iTunes Radio.
Yeah. I think, and the branding is Apple Music Radio, in the logo, but the actual name of the station is Apple Music One. So if you go into the music app, it just says Apple Music One.
And you can't call it Apple Music Radio because there's more than one station, and there's also the fact that you can turn any song into a station. You can pick any genre to be a station, that kind of thing.
Yeah, all the algorithmic stuff gets rolled into the whole Apple Music Radio.
But I mean, for all intents and purposes, Beats One becoming Apple Music One, there's no change there in features. There's I think the content-wise, generally it's the same thing. It's just rebranded, right?
Right. Yeah. They same host, Zane Lowe's still running it. When I first saw the news story come across the wire and they started rebranding, I was wondering, is there going to be talent shake-up? But no.
Or all those features that we thought, when Beats One was new in 2015, we're like, this would be really cool if you could subscribe and have a push notification when your favorite show pops up, and listen to it live. Have it integrate with your calendar, things like that. None of that. It just
that is the biggest takeaway from this is that. The rebranding's fine, and if you can get used to the name, and now they finally added more live stations with Apple Music Country and Apple Music Hits. Although well, why didn't they call it Apple Music 2? Because isn't that the whole point of having Apple
Well, I'm
Music
glad they
1?
didn't because that's less descriptive than than it could be.
Yeah, but if you got Beats 1, it was like, we're ready for Beats 2,
They
guys.
should. I guess they don't want to like lose the legacy of like Beats One. It's like this is the main thing. This is the first station. This is what you
Yeah,
know
I
us
think
to
it'd be
do.
better if they'd have called it Apple Music Live or something, right?
I don't know. It's a hard one to solve, but I think it just all I can say is that it's worse than it was. The
Yeah.
Beats One could have gone on.
But yeah, the biggest takeaway is exactly what you pointed out,
Yeah.
is that you can rebrand it, but feature-wise, we're still begging the things that we wanted when it launched in 2015. Like, if you like a particular host, there's no way to get a notification for when they go live. If you want to just see the schedule, that's difficult. If you want to know, like, oh, if you follow, your 50 favorite artists in just the library, and you can follow artists in Apple Music, it'd be great if you get told that they're now live on the radio and you can go listen to them. But there's none of that stuff. It's just very, very naive. It's like you can click here to listen live, or you just have to know to go back later and go and find the shows. You can't even like subscribe to the shows really and just get a feed like you could if it was a podcast. It's very disjointed.
Yeah, and so Apple Music Hits and Apple Music Country, those are both brand new stations. So you're gonna get more you're gonna get something different from them than you would from Beats One in terms of the show host and I guess the genres. I mean, especially with country. And I think that will probably also affect like you could imagine if there's stuff that goes into these stations that if that was ever put into Beats One, now Apple Music One, that Apple Music One loses some of that stuff. So if you heard country before on Beats One, you probably won't hear it now on Apple Music One. Although I think like genre wise, it was pretty heavy towards hip hop and that sort of thing. So with hits, I guess that's more pop stuff. But I guess it also depends on the host. And so for the first time, like in all of this stuff, there's one host who I'm like, oh, I'm actually a fan of that person. Not just I'm familiar with that person. And so
Who's that?
it's called After School Radio with Mark Hoppus, and he's the bass player for Blink-182, which is like among my favorite bands since I was a little kid. And so, and it's perfect for like I'm 29 years old. It's music from the past. It's like punk rock music from the past 30 years. So my whole lifetime, and every song on there like I'm familiar with, or I know that it influenced music I'm familiar with. And so I was like, oh, that's actually really cool. Let me go and subscribe. Oh, you can't subscribe. Well, let me just save a link to it so I can. No, you can't do that. When's it
Yeah.
air? Oh, well, okay. I finished the first episode. Let me go to the next episode. Oh, I guess it's weekly. There's a lot of discovery for me on this one, like a learning curve. But that's fine. Like I learned that I can't listen between devices because my play status isn't going to sync. So I've pretty much got to pick one device and have that be the phone because it's the most portable.
It's kind of like they interpreted radio as like the 1950s version of radio.
And if it's
right?
after the fact, you can fast forward. So if you're like, oh, I don't really like this song, let me skip through that one and keep going to there is some cool integration where if the song's playing, you can add it to your library. This has always been the case with the way the Beats One works. And so I've like, oh, now we've gone into the part where they talk again, and that's what I like. It's like, okay, I know the host. He's telling stories that I find interesting that I wouldn't find anywhere else. Good insight, good banter. Oh, I missed the song that's playing. Let me rewind, and now I can add that to my library. But there's no like, I don't know, chapters.
like history.
There is a playlist that's made from it, so I guess you could just like do the lazy thing and or skip all the actual broadcast. But
yeah, if you do the playlist, then you don't hear the bits in between, which is
yeah, and you don't really hear like why was this significant and why is it on your playlist in the first place. So
yeah, and like
anyway,
Apple Music Radio has a lot of talent associated with it, even before this announcement this week, because they have celebrity shows with like Billie Eilish and Elton John, and and all these big names, and Lady Gaga started a show, and obviously part of this announcement they have more like celebrity stars running shows with like Meghan Trainor and Backstreet Boys, Shania Twain, like loads of them, as well as the hosts that have a lot of them, most of them have come from professional DJing on other radio stations, so they have like proper talent associated with it. It's just very hard to find, and a lot of people will never find it. But maybe now with a renewed initiative, they can finally get to some of those features, like being able to get notified when your favorite person goes live,
iOS,
which feels so basic for a 2020 service. But
yeah, the Apple Music Country, I want to speak to that for a moment because I think it fits the sort of one of the things that Apple provides to the world, which is like they've got this idea of pushing diversity, of teaching, of expanding accessibility, of learning. And one thing that I know about country traditionally on the radio is that I think more male songs are played than female, and it's very specific as to what country the genre is. And if you listen to country today versus 20 years ago, it's a whole different thing. But if you listen to country, 20 years ago compared to like 50 or 40 years ago, it's different too. And there's always this kind of like battle of like what is country and what isn't. And there's this very big battle of like female artists not getting enough airtime, and then it perpetuates this thing where, well, how can your career take off if you're not getting played on the radio? And it's just imbalanced in terms of you can have more female artists, but they're going to have less playtime than a male artist. Mix that with the fact that country you can stereotype as like white Southern music. There's modern country. There's elements of all kind of music, whether it's rock, hip hop, and like the rock stuff has been accepted on like mainstream radio, but the hip hop stuff might not have been because it's a different kind of crossover. And so I can imagine Apple Music Country as a radio station being like, okay, let's embrace all of that. Let's embrace the fact that FM radio for country has opportunities. We can address those, and they can say, well, we like this modern idea of country as a genre, and so let's have a whole station where like we lead what that is and not rely on what traditional radio says country is. So I think this is where they can actually kind of make an impact in a way that makes sense for Apple.
Yeah, and and the radio tab, like the live radio stuff, is differentiation for Apple Music, because all of these music streaming services are very similar, but Spotify doesn't offer live radio stuff. They never have. So it's one area where like you are actually getting feature differentiation of like, oh, I actually really like Apple Music because this is and you can get associated with your favorite hosts and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and our colleague Bradley Chambers, who lives in Tennessee, and he's a country person. He did a feature request a few months ago, I believe, asking for like an Apple Music Nashville channel, and the idea was Nashville is like central for country music. It's where you go to become somebody in country music. Why isn't there an Apple Music relationship there? And now he has this station, and I think he quite likes it. And just to my point, I mean, I think it also expands the definition of country in a way that Apple likes.
For sure.
All right, let's take a break there too.
All right, for our second sponsor of the show, small businesses have unique needs, and despite the current economic uncertainty, one thing stays the same: the importance to have the right people on your team. When your business is ready to make its next hire, LinkedIn Jobs can help you by matching your role with qualified candidates so that you can find the right person quickly. LinkedIn is an active community of professionals with more than 690 million members worldwide. Simply start by posting the job title, company name, and location on the LinkedIn Jobs dashboard. LinkedIn Jobs screens candidates with the hard and soft skills that you're looking for. It puts your job post in front of qualified members. It's targeted to show up for people looking for a job just like yours. LinkedIn Jobs can help you hire the right person faster. And it can find people that are not only qualified, but that fit in with your company's culture. LinkedIn does the lead work, so you can focus on hiring the person who will transform your business. When your business is ready to make that next hire, find the right person with LinkedIn Jobs. You can pay what you want and get the first $50 off. Just visit linkedin.com/happy hour. Again, that's linkedin.com/happy hour to get $50 off your first job post. Terms and conditions apply. Our thanks to LinkedIn Jobs for sponsoring the show.
Yeah, thanks, LinkedIn. They've been a long-time sponsor, so I love having them come back. Let's talk about Epic Games, Fortnite, Apple, App
Another
Store.
long-time topic, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Every week there's... Well, actually, that is debatable.
In terms of it's going to span out for the next several years.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a whole lot new here to say, but...
Yeah, like,
it's
the short-term Fortnite situation now is that Apple is threatening to remove and cancel and deactivate Epic Games' developer account on August 28th. So they gave them a fortnight before they actually removed the account, which is quite funny. But the ramifications there are that because Epic obviously has Fortnite, and Fortnite's currently not available in the App Store, but when the account closure happens, existing installations of Fortnite are also going to stop working when the certificate naturally expires. Because right now, if you downloaded Fortnite before it got removed from the store, you can still play it. It's still on your phone, right? And Fortnite,
people are selling their phones that have it.
People are, yeah, exactly.
There's
Like
no
people are
value
even
there.
selling with it on it like it's a scarce resource. And Apple isn't happy because everyone who updated to the previous update can still do direct payments to Epic Games through the Fortnite app. I downloaded Fortnite on the day they added direct payments just so I could track it. So I right now could pay V-Bucks with a credit card and not give Apple a cut at all. So that's why Apple's unhappy, and that's why they're now taking this next step to say they're going to threaten they're going to close the account, because if they don't, then they're basically just letting someone violate their rules indefinitely. So that I can see why Apple has to do this, and it'll be up to Epic if they want to, carry on the fight and just get completely screwed over by not having their account anymore. Or I think personally that Epic Stunt has done its job. It's brought public awareness, and they'll probably just give up on it and be like, look, Apple's so punitive and they're going to close our other account. We're forced to, relent, and we'll take it off and we'll just carry on with our lawsuit, right? Because Apple's perfectly happy to let Fortnite back in the store as soon as they remove the direct payments feature. And if Fortnite does that, it won't be seen as them backtracking. It would just be seen as them having to follow the rules that Apple set out, and it won't diminish their, PR play for getting people on their side at all.
Either way, they can say that the damage has been done and we're still stuck with these restrictions. And
they can even carry on doing their lawsuit and take it to court if they want to.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, and in the wake of last week's episode, there was some feedback that was like, why should we care about what Epic wants? Because Epic is also just another, billion-dollar corporation that has its own motivations. And so I just wanted to address that quickly. Yes, and Epic Games, it's not just about having a direct payments option for Fortnite V-Bucks. It's plainly written in their lawsuit. Epic Games would love to run an alternative app store on iOS that they can, just like they do on the PC where they run their own store of games, they want to do that on the iPhone. They want to do it on Android as well. And alternative app stores probably are pretty damaging for the iOS platform. And I wouldn't want to see a world where we devolve into having 10 app stores, spread about the place with massive companies running them. The unification under one roof is good. But whatever Epic's motives are, it's kind of irrelevant. They can be a terrible company, and many people think they are, but they have a point.
Do you remember when Apple Music was they weren't going to pay artists during the free trial, the 90-day free trial, and so Taylor Swift did the Tumblr blog post on a Father's Day that was oh well, I'm not going to put my music on Apple Music then if you're not going to pay all artists. And it wasn't because of Taylor Swift. It was a matter of principle. This isn't quite as romantic as that, but it's similar. It's that the people in power are the ones that can affect the change here. The little guy can't protest and pull their app. It's oh well, who cares? It doesn't affect Apple. And you can argue Epic Games doesn't affect Apple if they protest, but it at least gets attention of the courts and governments and regulatory bodies.
Right, and there's probably, let's say, 100 companies that are big enough that could make a public impact like what Epic did, right? You could have Netflix do it, you could have Spotify do it, and those companies have done it to some extent. Spotify kind of started this whole train off by filing a formal complaint to the EU last year. And I don't particularly like Spotify either. I think they've pushed it to the limit as well with a lot of PR,
yeah.
Oh, it's so unfair that we can't, do streaming on the Apple Watch, and then they get the opportunity to do streaming on the Apple Watch and they don't take it. All these big companies have their own ulterior motivations, but so does Apple. I'm not here to take sides. I think the App Store needs some changes, and I don't care who's going to be the bastion to fight against it. I think it's important for it to happen because we can complain in this podcast, but we have nowhere near the influence of these.
We
massive...
just get beta stuff fixed, and
yeah, exactly. We're lucky if we can get
maybe a couple
obvious bugs in. How many months have we been talking about the TV app for and it being terrible? They don't listen to me at all.
Feature requests in a year, and it's
the App Store macroeconomic situation is way beyond us. And so when these big companies bring the fight, I think that's good, and so I congratulate that. I don't have any care for the individual policy because the whole point is I want Apple to sort their policies out before they're forced to by some government that do it badly, right? I don't think having unregulated app stores is a good idea, but they need to find some leeway from the current situation. As well this week we saw that basically Epic's brought up this fuss and they're just rallying people to join them. They even said, look, we're trying to make a coalition of people that are unhappy. And one of the latest to join is the newspapers, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. They released a public letter today saying that they're unhappy with the state of the App Store. And specifically, they mention the 30% cut because they say, look, you made a special deal with Amazon. Amazon, you only charge them 15%. For us, we have to pay 30% in the first year and then 15%. Why are we not allowed 50% too? Like, and this is, I think the Amazon like email back and forth that came up from the judiciary hearing, I think that's going to come back to bite them again and again and again, because the whole premise that they make with the App Store rules is like, we make these rules and we make them universal, so they're, applied fairly across the board. But then here come the clear evidence that they make special agreements with people. So you can't present the App Store as this kind of like homogenous thing that everyone just has to comply to, but then also be making like sweetheart deals and special deals with other people. Like,
And the Amazon deal is because they made a certain they meet, maybe it's defined in reverse, but they meet a set of requirements where Amazon's in the Apple TV app. They're on the Apple TV App Store. You sell Apple TVs through the Amazon Store, and all
they
those
set up
things,
that storefront. They kicked out all the unauthorized resellers from
all those things come
Amazon.com.
together so that they can, and then the result of that is that there's a special deal now where Amazon gets to take home more money than other services do. But like the Wall Street Journal doesn't really have the equivalent of like the Amazon Prime Video app or the Amazon digital store like in the market.
Right, they don't have the leverage, right? But again, it's kind of like Apple tries to present the App Store as like, here are just the rules you have to abide by.
They say these apply to everybody, but to say because you meet these three requirements, say it's the Apple TV stuff, it's being in the TV app, it's supporting for whatever, like if you do those things, those aren't even relevant to Wall Street Journal, so or any like anybody but Amazon and like the other station that you'd found in Europe or somewhere. But they just, because you make that such a specific thing, then you can't say it's one rule for everybody, because that's like I think the problem with that exception being cut out is like, it's because you want to make that deal to begin with, then you like find a way to justify it.
You make up rules that make it like, it's like having a rule that says if your name starts with A and ends with N, we'll give you 50% off the commission cost, right? Like the rules can be the rules can be unfair outright, even if they're applied equally. And secondly, if Apple wants to have a store where it's like everyone negotiates individually and they offer different things back and forth, then they have to present it like that. Because I'm pretty sure the anti-competitive arguments that come from the EU and the US are going to say, look, you're using your influence in another market, i.e. iPhone sales. Oh, well, look, we can sell the iPhone on Amazon to help people on the App Store, right? Like, it's disjoint in the situation. And I'm sure like the newspaper companies would love to make the argument that like, to better compete with the web or better to compete against your news app, you shouldn't be allowed to charge 30% on this. Like, if you want to have negotiations on a case-by-case basis, then you have to open it up to that. You can't have Tim Cook sitting in front of a committee and saying, we apply all rules the same to everybody, when it's just not going to happen. So
could you do a rule where if Apple can, I think the answer to this is no, because Apple's in so many different things, but could you do a rule that says if Apple competes with this service, they can't charge a percent,
Yeah, that is honestly like a good negotiation, right? Like Spotify could say, look, we are being unfairly targeted here because you have Apple Music, but you don't charge Apple Music 30%. But so if it, and that may be one of the things that if it gets to that point, the EU and the US can like.
I haven't thought about it enough, but it just feels like Apple's in so many different services that like, and they keep expanding.
Yeah, I mean the amount, but that's like
Then it's just like, well, Apple can't charge a percent anymore because they're in everything.
But that's like that's kind of even in the playing field, right? Because if the argument goes that if the rest of the App Store weren't subject to the same barriers to entry, then Apple wouldn't be able to just make a million services and have them be successful, right? Because like the whole point is they're building like their moat, which means that their services can rise above naturally because they, that from the day zero they have 30% less costs. So if they didn't have that advantage, Apple wouldn't necessarily be incentivized to make all these services because they know they wouldn't be able to win on them all. And like, maybe they do TV, but they won't bother doing news, or they won't bother doing fitness. Do you know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't have the ability to even do everything because they just would be on the level playing field with everyone else, and they know most people are going to fail. And a third-party company that's dedicated to one service could do it better. So, like, and I like a lot of Apple services. Like, I like Apple Music, but I don't think that invalidates Spotify's argument. That's the point, right?
Yeah. In terms of in-app purchase stuff, I would not mind like at all if you could. if just like there's in-app purchases, there'd be a PayPal button or there'd be a credit card form where you fill out or you auto-populate it like you do on the web, like having the same equivalent to the web, where you've got Apple Pay is like the fastest, easiest way to do it if you're on Safari. It does seem restricted. Like that's the thing that seems like the easiest to resolve is in-app purchase and the revenue from that, because you can argue that in-app purchase is the most convenient because you kind of are forced to populate it with information, with your payment information, and so then it's by default. But you could also say tap PayPal and you just like sign into that, or there've been a number of those kind of fast checkout methods that are available on the web, have those in apps, and then they're like, okay, if you do that, then it's just a purchase. Like,
Yeah.
that's that arbitrary rule of like what's a digital service and what's not. But
Yeah, because when you make an Uber ride, Apple doesn't take 30% of the Uber ride because they count it as a physical transaction, right?
Yeah.
So again, that's just a rule that Apple made up. They could change it. I think because people always rebuttal to that of like alternate payment methods. Oh, then you get like shady sign-up forms and stuff, right? And so again, I used the internet for a long time. I haven't fallen for one of those scams in a while. Like that just doesn't happen, right? But if you wanted to say, look, Apple's making a nice walled garden. Okay, we want to offer some level of security and safety. I think it'd be reasonable if Apple said, look, if your revenue exceeds $10 million a year, you're allowed to use a secondary payment service because we can, then entrust you to do it properly. And if you promote something bad, then we'll pull you and whatsoever. Like they can offer. That's what called negotiation is, right? It's not just here's 10 rules that you have to follow. It's like, okay, we understand we can adapt in this way. It's like going back to the game streaming thing where Apple was like, we can't have game streaming because we can't review the games. Well, the only reason they can't review the games is they don't have the process set up to do it. Like, they're just making barriers for no arbitrary rules for themselves, right? So that's where this thing is all going to eventually wind up, is that there's going to be some relaxation. There needs to be some release valve somewhere. And, like, I think a lot of the discontent that Spotify and Netflix have would be solved. You don't even need to be able to make the purchase in the app. Just being able to say, look, subscribe. To make an account, you have to go here to our website, and you can click the link and go to the website. The fact that they can't even say that is hugely problematic. Like, I'm not. I'm a developer. I do make apps. I would love it if Apple reduced the 30% cut. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think they're going to do something else that will appease the big guys that are pressuring down their necks, which will then also make the court cases far less poisonous or charged, because all the big guys will have fallen away by now because they'll be happy because they can just say, look, if you open the Netflix app, it says you have to go to Safari, go to this website. Okay, we're all happy. Case is over. But there has to be some relaxation because, Apple's the biggest company in the world and they can't have unilateral control of the store, which basically means they have sole power to dictate the course of software for 50% of the world, because about 50% of the world, or at least 50% of the United States, because 50% of the United States has an iPhone, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's where all this is going. And it doesn't matter if Epic wants to do this and Epic wants to do that and Spotify wants to, do it. It's irrelevant, like, who's making the arguments. The core argument is that Apple's situation is imbalanced and there needs to be some reconciliation there.
Yep. All right, let's do some headlines before we head off for the week. So let's see. We've got this thing that happened today where Apple made a YouTube video post. It's like one of those things where we get. I saw this first in our tips inbox, where somebody sent a screenshot of like, look what I found. Someone Apple's testing an event for September the 12th on YouTube, and it's like it's on YouTube, like, and it's like a picture of their computer screen, and we see so much of that stuff where it's like faked. It's like, okay, but then there were like a dozen, and they were all on Twitter too, and I'm not sure how I actually like just missed the thing on YouTube to begin with, but yeah, Apple posted a video test for an event, for like a live stream test that seems to be mistaken,
Yeah, it was set for September 10th, 2020.
Yeah.
It's just so convenient that in 2019 the iPhone event was also on September 10th. So that's my theory on this, is that they just, someone flicked the switch and made a what was meant to be an unlisted video test public.
Yeah,
it's
never meant to. It wasn't like, finally this is done now, hit go and it's scheduled. It's like, at no point was this meant to even be published.
Yeah.
And so it certainly wasn't like tuned up to be the event date and everything.
Yeah, because September the 10th falls on a Thursday, which is not a usual date for an Apple event this year. Like last year, it was a Tuesday.
Which
so
is
that
very
was
far
perfect.
from October. I mean, you could do like iPhone pre-orders in 2 weeks and then they ship, and but we have this expectation of, because of what Apple said, that iPhones will be in October this year. And there always could be like an event in early September and it'd be MacBook Pro first and some other stuff, but this is one of those things where it's goofy that it happened.
Yeah, it's a funny little ditty, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
like the fact that Apple's account got hacked by the Twitter thing. That was funny too, but
Yeah.
realistically, what matters? Like, I don't think we're gonna have a September 10th event. Like, it was a funny showing, but there's not enough.
And I also don't think it's like a planned leak, kind of like
Sure.
planned accident kind of thing. I
Yeah.
think it's honestly a mistake. Like, oops,
Yeah, Apple does make mistakes.
didn't mean to do that. Yeah.
You should see, honestly, the Apple TV account, they must repost about half their tweets. They get mistakes constantly. Like, Apple makes mistakes, and this was just a funny one that showed up, and it was kind of sort of maybe viable, but if you actually look at the actual date that they're proposing there, Apple's not going to have an event on a Thursday. It's just not going to happen.
Unless they do, but they don't think.
Unless they do. And I mean, this is 2020. Anything can happen, but
Yeah. We also saw Apple hit the $2 trillion market cap, so the company's worth $2 trillion for the first time, or at least it was for a moment. I'm not sure if it stuck around or not.
yeah, it bubbles around, but they hit that. They got their, they got their milestone.
Yeah, this happened fast. Like they got to 1 million, or excuse me, 1 trillion, and there was a long, like years long, kind of like countdown to who will the first company hit 1 trillion be, when will it be, and eventually like Apple was close enough that it's like, okay, when is Apple going to hit 1 trillion?
Yeah.
And then it happened. And
Yeah, it happened in August 2018, so
yeah,
2 years
so
ago.
not that long ago. And then in less time than we speculated, like which company will be first, Apple's doubled to 2 trillion, and they become the first company to be worth $2 trillion.
In the midst of a pandemic that is causing macroeconomic destruction, like.
And iPhones are a month late, or a few weeks
Yeah,
late.
like this is the kind of hilarious thing is that obviously market cap is just a value of or just a measure of investor optimism, right?
Yeah.
Because
And so
Apple,
they think like long term Apple is okay.
yeah, because if you look at earnings in 2018 versus this year, Apple's revenue as overall for the whole year is only up like 1.5%, literally like barely changed, and yet now their company value has doubled. Like,
It hasn't doubled since 2018 August.
yeah, doubled since 2018, which is craziness. Like, investor optimism is higher than ever, and obviously, they clearly think that long term Apple's service revenue is going to keep going up, and there's going to be new product opportunities and
Did we
stuff like
hear
that.
Apple's stock split soon?
Yeah, the stock splits at the end of the month, so
What is that? 4-1?
4-1. So the price will divide by 4 because every stock basically just gets split into 4.
Yeah, so it's cheaper to get out basically. So.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Although the value of the company doesn't change.
It's the same, right?
difference. But I just think it's funny that like investors are loving it at the moment, and then you look from like the consumer side, and there's like doubts everywhere. You've got doubts about the App Store situation. You've got doubts about like just the pandemic, reducing the demand for products and stuff. Like, it's just a weird phenomenon where I feel like 2 years ago we would be saying like Apple's firing on all cylinders, woo woo woo, and investors clearly weren't like up to the scratch. But now 2 years later, investors are like shooting for the moon, and like general kind of like product pundits or whatever you want to call us are like, it doesn't really feel that different from 2 years ago. Like, all of Apple's services have come out the gate not fantastically, right? Like, they're all slow building, and
Yeah, it's growing pains. Is how
growing
it's
pains, right?
Yeah.
We just talked about stupid problems with Apple Music that were true 2 years ago as they are today. Like
5 years ago.
yeah, 5 years ago, right? So it's just a weird situation where I feel like for the longest time, like investors kind of undervalued.
I mean, if you look at Tesla this week, like I think they hit or are going to hit 2,000.
Yeah.
and you can listen to our electric podcast for that. But like that's a thing where I think $500 ago or so, or like $1,000 ago, the stock was crazy high, and there's like nothing. I know Fred Lambert at Electric was like, there's nothing product wise, like news wise to, or even like an investment note wise, like explain this growth today alone. What is it? And
yeah, I feel like all of like the big tech like companies have just seen their stock prices go through the roof, and then you look from
it's
like
it's bad. It's the way it is right now, and it will get better, and that's not optimism.
yeah, and then you look at like from the product side, and it doesn't seem like Apple's twice as good as a company as they were 2 years ago, but that's the stock market for you. It's a weird situation.
Maybe they were just undervalued 2 years ago. I don't know.
Do you know what I mean, though? It's just a
Yeah,
funny
yeah.
thing where, like, if you wanted me to rate Apple out of 10, at the moment, I'd probably give them like a 7. Whereas probably in 2 years ago, it was just coming off the back of the iPhone 10. They were like, they had a massive update for the Apple Watch coming that fall. And we've just, seen like 2 years the Apple Watch not going too very far with the software and stuff like that. And so it'd be like 7 versus like 9.5 2 years ago. But it's just a weird disparity. It's interesting.
Yeah. Let's see what else we have. Well, I guess that's it for the week besides Q&A, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at some questions. Let's see. So we talked a lot about the September 10th event because it happened like right before the episode, and so that's where on YouTube Apple accidentally published what will be a live event in the future. They've done some like mess ups with events. And remember during the iPhone 7 event, they revealed the iPhone 7 on Twitter.
Yeah.
Before they revealed it in the that was event day, but still.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
OGR asks, new rumors were published by Mac Rumors about the new iPad Pro next month. Is it true? Yeah, I saw that report. It was from some supply chain stuff. I think can very well be true. Like they just did an iPad Pro refresh in March. That is correct, but it was a relatively small one, right? They just added a LiDAR sensor and basically changed nothing else about the thing. The big change there was the keyboard accessory. Mm-hmm. If they do have another iPad Pro update planned for the end of the year, maybe with the A14X chip, and we keep hearing rumors about the mini LED display stuff. Like, I think it's perfectly reasonable for them to have a second iPad Pro update this year that follows through with the spec bump kind of situation, whereas the 2020 iPad Pro from March just has the same. It's the A12Z chip, but it's the A10X internals, right? So, and they have. It's not common for there to be updates on such a frequent basis, but it definitely happens. I mean, especially on the iPad, they had the iPad 3 and the iPad 4 in the same year, and I'd say there was much bigger jumps there than what they're proposing here. So I wouldn't say it's impossible for sure.
Yeah, Delva has a few questions. One is just like guessing when in October will there be an event, and I would say like I've not ruled out a September event, like a late September event. You can still announce new iPhones in September and have them be a week out and come out in October.
Yeah, I mean Luca Maestri said a few weeks later, and so if the iPhone normally comes out in the third week of September, a few weeks could be 3 weeks, which is like the second week of October.
Right.
So a last week of September event seems very reasonable.
Right. Although October 6th, that'd be my birthday. I'm not gonna work that day. I don't know. I turn 30 that day.
The big 30.
I don't know what I'm gonna do that day, but it's gonna be fun. iPhone colors and battery life. Battery life. I mean, even when you have like a larger capacity, it could be used for something. So that's tough to say. But I think this past cycle was the one where you get rid of 3D Touch, and that gives you the battery life gains. That's the one where we had that big improvement, and we won't see that for a long time. I don't think. And then new colors. I don't know, there was that one Twitter account that was like goodbye to the green iPhone or something. I think they're talking about the Pro models, so the midnight green. And
the rumor is they're going to switch from like a midnight green to like a dark blue kind of color.
Yeah. So that seems like that hasn't gone away yet.
And frankly, I never really liked midnight green, and I feel like I'd like blue a lot more. So I'm down for that.
Yeah, I think like, is there not a blue phone? And I just like think back to the iPhone 5 in slate, which is like the closest thing to a blue phone.
And that was a nice looking phone. You can't deny it. It did crack. It did like scratch very easily.
It scuffed.
It scuffed. Yeah, it got scuffed up.
It revealed its interior.
That phone and the jet black iPhone 7 are probably like the two just like color finishes that stick in my mind the most of like previous iPhones. They don't most practical ones,
right.
But they were cool looking.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then iPhone with charger or not. You'll have to fill me in on this one because I'm a little bit removed. But we think every iPhone will not have a charger, or is it certain models?
All iPhones, no headphones, no charger. You'll get a USB-C cable, and you can have that.
USB-C to Lightning, right? So,
USB-C, yeah, exactly.
Because that port isn't changing, and so it's
and there's been no developments on whether Apple's gonna. There's been everyone seems pretty set that there's gonna be no accessories. So if you're hoping for a charger, you need to budget in a $20 purchase because you're not getting one.
Yep. All right, that is the Happy Hour podcast for this week. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe to 9 to 5 Mac on YouTube. You can subscribe to Happy Hour. We're here every week on YouTube on Thursday afternoons. You can also subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, everywhere you listen to podcasts. If you enjoyed the show, give us a review. We really appreciate that. If you have any feedback, you can email us at happyhour@9to5mac.com. I am Zac Hall. I write at 9to5mac and spaceexplore.com. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ApolloZac. Benjamin Mayo, you are on Twitter at
BZA Mayo.
And you write and blog at
BZAMayo.com. rebranding.com.
All right. We will talk to everybody next week. Bye.
Bye bye.